Hey everyone, you can say that this is the first video on my channel. I do have some other videos, but they were more or less experimental, you could say. I don't know if this is going to be a regular thing. I would try to upload more videos about books and my academic life. However, my academic life currently is at an intermediary stage. Next year, I'm presuming it would be better. Then there will be or can be more videos on, just my daily academic life, some study with me vlogs. Mostly, however, this channel is just going to be me rambling about books, stationaries from time to time, maybe just all the nerdy stuff. So I hope you enjoy this video where I'm going to be talking about some of these books which I just read this year and the books that actually made an impact in my life in one way or the other. So these are the books which I found absolutely riveting. So I'm going to be talking about them. Not too much, of course. I won't give away too much because obviously I don't want to give away spoilers. So yeah, but some of the books here, like some of the fiction books here, are quite famous, and I'm pretty sure that if you have been um, a consistent member of the book community across various social media platforms, then you probably have heard about these books at least once in your lifetime till now. So yeah, anyways, let's get started without further ado. So the first book that I have on this list is Midnight Children by Salman Rushdie. So I actually do have a lot of books by Salman Rushdie at home, but I haven't really gotten around to reading these books. So this is literally my first Salman Rushdie, and I cannot wait to read more from him. Uh, I really do enjoy the magic realism genre, and I really plan to read more on that. So one of my most favorite books of all time is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and he is uh, most certainly known as, one of the most prominent figures in the field of magic realism, like in that era now, basically. So yeah, and reading Midnight Children felt like such a breath of fresh air because Salman Rushdie also said that Midnight Children is sort of inspired uh, by 100 Years of Solitude. It was kind of like a tribute to Gabo. So yeah. And I read this, I think, in the month of May. Uh, and oh my god. It's not, I mean, it's not that I am biased. I mean, yes, I am Indian, so I did relate to a lot of things which were said here, which were, deliberated upon in this book. But in general, though, I would say that this novel is mesmerizing. It takes you on a ride, genuinely, because, you go through the lives of all these children who were born at midnight, and there are so many amazing, whimsical, and phantasmagorial events happening, and they're happening not like, you're sitting there and you're reading this book and you're reading about all these events happening. Not once will you think that, oh, this is abnormal. The way it's written, that's the art of magic realism. It makes it feel like, everything is real, sort of like you're drifting through your through the fragments of your dream. So yeah. And this book, it is sort of telling the history of India post independence and how India transformed, both politically as well as culturally post independence through the lives of certain children who were born at midnight. And particularly, I mean, Salim is basically the protagonist of this book, and he is he is quite an eccentric character, to be more specific, and he goes on a lot of adventures. And basically, it's not just Salim; it's his family, his grandparents, his parents, basically talking about the lineage of the family as a whole, his friends and the people he interacts with. I cannot really tell too much about what happens in the book, because if I do, then I'll be spoiling quite a bit. Because every single page has a mystery, every single page has a different story and a different tale to tell. So I do not want to spoil too much if you haven't read this book, and if you have, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's so much packed within these pages. It's this is I mean that's one of the that's one of that's also one of the defining criteria and characteristics of 100 Years of Solitude. I mean, if you read that book, you'll know. If you have read that book, you'll know. And if you, or when you read that book, you'll also come to know that, every single page has so much happening, literally every single line. So it's pretty similar in that sense. So I can see how, it's more or less like a tribute to Gabo and his, account of Colombia, basically, through the story of 100 Years of Solitude. Anyway, so this is actually wonderful, and the way it begins and the way it ends grips you from the core, and that is quite similar to how Gabo does it in 100 Years of Solitude. So yeah, I think I can read you the first line from these books. That'll be interesting. So this book is basically divided into 3 books: book 1, 2, and 3. So the first book is starting with the chapter "The Perforated Sheet." I was born in the city of Bombay once upon a time. That's it. It's a small first line, but as it progresses, you'll see how eccentric, how outlandish everything becomes, but all the more believing at the same time. So yeah, that's Midnight Children by Salman Rushdie. Next book is Cannery Row by John Steinbeck. So Steinbeck also, he's one of those authors who I have heard about a lot, but I haven't gotten around to reading. But so this was basically my first Steinbeck, and I recently got another of his novels, which is The East of Eden. Yeah, The East of Eden is considered to be his magnum opus, so I do really have high hopes for that book. So yeah, but this book, oh my god. So I was actually going through a reading slump when I picked this book up. I don't know why I picked up Steinbeck, because usually it's not considered to be an easy read. The language is difficult, the story flows, the plot flows and everything, but all in all, there's a lot of existential, there's a lot of existential discussions going on. Not exactly in that sense, but not in the literal sense, but you can have that kind of a feeling, when you're reading this book, you contemplate about life. When I read this book, I started contemplating about a lot of aspects of life, existence, life, interactions with people, relationships, building friendships, relationships with people, just human conduct and behavior in various situations overall. It's a beautiful book, it's a very quaint and lovely book, but there are moments in this book, when you just want to stop on your tracks and be like, okay, did I just read that? Did that just happen? That's how it actually began, to be more specific. But overall, the tone of the book is just so quaint, So I'll read you the blurb at the back. In the din and stink that is Cannery Row, a colorful blend of misfits, gamblers, whores, drunks, bums, and artists survive side by side in a jumble of adventure and mischief. Might I just add that this is also quite funny and witty at times. Lee Chong, the astute owner of the fantastically well-stocked grocery store, is also the proprietor of the palace flophouse that Mac and his troop of good-natured boys call home. Dora, of the flaming orange hair and taste for Nile green dresses, runs the brothel with clockwork efficiency. Doc, who owns the laboratory — Doc is a very eccentric character, man. He is amazing. Is the fount of all generosity and wisdom. Everybody wants to do something nice for Doc. The trouble is, he always ends up paying. Packed with invention and joie de vivre, Uh, I never quite get the pronunciation right. Is it Joy de Vivre or Joy de Vivre? I'm pretty sure it's Joy de Vivre. Correct me if I'm wrong. Cannery Row is Steinbeck's high-spirited tribute to his native California. So yeah, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful read. Next book is a nonfiction. It's Michael J. Sandel's Justice. So I'm a law student, because of which I do find books which discuss the jurisprudence of law or any subject areas, any specific areas under law. I just find it fascinating, right? But in general, I would say, even if you are not a law student, even if you're not interested in legal philosophy or jurisprudence, I still think you should just read it, because it's written in a very very easy manner. Okay, so a lot of these things which were discussed here, I was familiar with, because they were taught to me in class while I was doing my undergrad. But a lot of these topics, when you are being taught that, or when you're reading it from any difficult text or textbooks, or reference books, you read it from a very academic point of view. And Michael J. Sandel actually gives a lot of very interesting examples of various geopolitical issues, or just current events and contemporary discussions, to explain a very complicated concepts of legal philosophy. He covers categorical imperatives of Kant, and even, I think, as far as I remember, so he discusses these theories like utilitarianism, libertarianism, markets and morals, like I said, categorical imperatives of Kant, Immanuel Kant, I meant. John Rawls' theory of equality, and then he also discusses, the current discussions regarding affirmative action, and he discusses a man's worth, or what he deserves, through the perspective of Aristotle's theory. He discusses even, the concept of teleology. What do we owe one another? Dilemmas of loyalty, justice and the common good. Basically, he discusses all these theories with all these examples of the contemporary world before arriving at his own theory or his own conclusion, rather. So, which is also a quite interesting interpretation, I would say. And I really do recommend, if anybody's interested in reading nonfiction books, which are, not too technical and not too difficult, but come with a lot of knowledge, and they help you understand certain interesting concepts. And if you are interested in philosophy in general, I think you should just give this book a go. The third book is The Book of Laughter and Forgetting by Milan Kundera. As you can see, it's a pretty old copy. It was my father's, actually. So this has become one of my most favorite books of all time. I'm not kidding. I absolutely love it. The way he has, just portrayed the core political, cultural, as well as the socio-economic aspects of communism in Russia, at that point of time when communism was all the vogue, through these different characters, and their lives. He has this, his way of connecting the world, or the surrounding, or the political atmosphere at that point of time in Russia, with the characters, with how they think, how they perceive the world around them, in a way which, feels like as if you are a part of the character, like you are you're drifting through their psyche, you're drifting through their thoughts and through their minds, through their perceptions about what's happening around them. It's wonderful, you know. And some of the stories, you know, they are just they parallel the lives of the citizens in isolation from what's happening. You know, the big picture, how communism is changing Russia, or was changing at that point of time, rather. And at the same time, you know, he shows how uh, Russia was changing and how the people who were living in isolation from all the changes were still somehow going through a metamorphosis of their own, you know. And it's wonderful, actually. And there's this one character and her story, Tamina, you know. She is, her story is just magnificent. There's a little bit of surreal aspect to it, you know. The one part of her story is, you know, it just drifts off into a completely surreal, or rather magic real spectrum, you know. And it's a representation of a particular characteristic of the communist revolution. You know, how they were obsessed with being conservative, or maintaining a sort of an innocent and a pure um, perception of the world, in a sense. And he has depicted it through a wonderful story about Pamina. And the book ends magnificently. Like, I was at awe when I read the last time, when I read the last few pages. I was completely in awe, like a bunch of people just standing on the beach. And I'm not going to really say a lot because it's going to be sort of spoiler only. But yeah, it's just wonderful. And you know, Mulan Kundera had this tendency to include his own discussions and include his own deliberations about certain academic topics in between his narrative, which actually I would say added to my very fulfilling experience of reading this book. So yeah, overall it was just a wonderful experience. It felt like I was just, you know, in a trance. So yeah, very, very rarely do I feel like that when I, you know, finish a book. So Book of Laughter and Forgetting, I highly recommend it. But this is just, I was at awe. I was in an awe, literally. So the next book is Haruki Murakami's Norwegian Wood. Actually, I reread this book. I read this book a long time ago before I started my college. I didn't really enjoy it at that point of time. I don't know why. Not as much, I mean. But this time I reread it like a couple of months ago, and I must say, I was so wrong about the book when I first read it. I don't know why I could not get into it at that point of time. But this is wonderful. Like, I wouldn't say it's one of his best works because I don't know. I mean, I did really like Kafka on the Shore more than Norwegian Wood, but it's definitely up there. And yeah, it's basically a story about it's a coming of age story, you know, about coping with grief and coming to terms with the changes in life, relations, building relations with people, building yourself, connecting with the world, connecting with the people you care about the most, or who have some impact in your life. A major part of the book deals heavily with suicide and mental health, so that's a disclaimer if that's a trigger for you. So I don't know, I mean, maybe you should not read this book right now. Otherwise, I mean, you know, the way it deals with these issues, it's very delicate, it's uh, very meticulous in a way, and it's actually wonderful. It's wonderful. Um, I was also sort of in a trance while reading this book. So yeah, I mean, and you know, Murakami's style of writing is basically describing each and every event word by word, and you know, it's kind of like you're living in that moment, like you're experiencing what the protagonists or the characters are experiencing. So it was very in I was I mean, I'm not really finding the right word for it, but it kind of felt like if you're really exhausted after a hard day's of work and you sit um, on your balcony with a glass of wine and just sip your wine and look at the sunset, the feeling that you would get, is kind of similar to what you feel when you're reading this book. So that's Norwegian Wood. I do recommend this book, obviously. Then we have the last two books are really just classics. So there's Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. This I just started reading Tolstoy and Dostoevsky like this year, and I plan to read more of their books in the coming year. And I must say, this has also become one of my most favorite books of all time. Like, I am not kidding. Both of these books, this one is basically Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Crime and Punishment, wow. Just seriously. It's like, it's an entire book about this. It's almost like you're living inside the mind of the protagonist, the perpetrator rather. And the anxiety, the tension that he is feeling, you're feeling at the same time. And in the end, when all this anxiety comes to an end, it feels like your anxiety also had a sort of a cathartic experience, like a cathartic ending. And it's wonderful, how he deals with so many complicated emotions of all these characters, just complicated emotions of humans, how complicated we are. I mean, he delved deep into the complications of human mind, that if somebody's just conventionally considered to be an evil guy, it doesn't really mean that just because somebody is capable of giving into absolute immorality is not capable of falling in love. And at the same time, it also discusses how different class differences, there are, how class differences gain the spotlight and how in certain situations it doesn't. So it's very, there are multiple facets to this novel. It's not just a very thrilling experience, but there are very interesting intellectual discussions about the the societal structure of Russia at that point of time, class differences, just people and their psychology of just life in general. And it's wonderful, actually. There are some amazing characters here, which, when you read about them, it just strikes something in you. You start to think, like, okay, that's something new. So yeah, that's Crime and Punishment. I'm kind of rushing through the remaining books is because these books are really famous. They're famous classics, and if you've been a part of the book community, you probably have heard about them at least once. Also, I have been rambling for like 24 minutes, and I don't want to extend this video too long. So yeah, the next book is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Again, another one of my most favorite books of all time now. Absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it just deals with two lives that parallels life and death in every aspect. This just parallel of, I mean, he dealt with life and death parallelly, both in like different circumstances, with respect to different circumstances, with different events, as well as with respect to the characters themselves, and it's wonderful how there's this mirror effect. One character is searching for the purpose and meaning of life within himself, and the other character is searching it outside, somewhere else, from the external relations, from the external validation of the world, or from the world rather. And in a way, actually, Tolstoy, unlike Dostoevsky, I think Tolstoy doesn't deal too much with the psychology of the characters, but it deals with, but he actually basically portrays human conduct, behavior, relations, interactions against the juxtaposition of the political, cultural, socioeconomic structure of Russia at that point of time. And it's more, I mean, his tone of writing gives a more of a philosophical portrayal of life, existence, and just human behavior in general. In contrast to how Dostoevsky deals more into more about the psyche and the psychology of the characters. I mean, yes, there are a lot of philosophical discussions which can be, ignited when we are talking about, Dostoevsky's portrayal of characters. But Tolstoy, I think, does it more vividly throughout the story. I mean, I'm just saying it on the basis of, one of the novels that I've read by each of them. I have to read more of their novels to be able to kind of holistically say what my opinion about their, interpretation and about their narrative style is. But, in the end of the day, it's all, just an opinion. It all comes down to just an opinion. So yeah, that's just my interpretation rather. So yeah. And it's just a wonderful story. You get so connected to the characters in this book that it becomes difficult to move on from the book once you're finished, which happened to me actually. So yeah, Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. And the book that I'm currently reading right now is a nonfiction. It's From Bacteria to Bach and Back, Evolution of Minds. It's very interesting. It's technical at times, but nonetheless really an interesting ride. Daniel C. Dennett comes forth with a very interesting theory about the evolution of conscious minds, and he kind of uses the analogy of artificial intelligence when he's talking about the concept of intelligent design. Obviously, he's not talking about intelligent design by God. He's talking about intelligent design by natural selection. So it's very interesting how he comes forth with his theory. I can't really talk much about this book because I've read like a few hundred pages only. So yeah, maybe that is for the next video or another video when I finish the book. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I think I have already rambled for so long. I shouldn't take long wrapping this video up, and I just want to say that if you really enjoyed this rambling about books, let me know in the comments if you want me to continue making such videos in this channel, if you want this channel to go on, and if you do want to support this channel. I just want you to maybe, express that in one way or the other. Maybe subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, or maybe explain in the comments if, you really liked anything about this particular video, if you want me to make different kinds of videos along the similar lines, or maybe just discuss something else, some other books maybe, So yeah, going forth, I can say that I think most of these videos are just going to be me rambling about books, or just something academic related, some bits and snippets of my academic life, maybe some study with me vlogs. It's more or less an academic channel, so yeah, a platform to nerd out. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and see you next time.